Everybody ready? Okay. I'd like to call the regular council meeting of November the 8th to order. And we are honored to gather on the unceded traditional territory of the Comox First Nations. This meeting tonight is held in the council chambers. The public may attend in person or view live on Village of Cumberland YouTube channel. And masks must be worn when you attend. However, vaccine cards are not required. First item is approval of the agenda.
Move approval with late item 6.3.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Next, minutes.
Move the minutes.
Second.
All in favor? Carried. And next is receipt of committee minutes.
Move receipt. Second.
All in favor? Carried. No delegations. Unfinished business. Comox Valley Youth Strategy. Lindsay McGuinn of the Comox Valley Community Health Council made a presentation to the last council meeting, and they asked for us to look at 5 items, and the recommendation is there. But just to let you know, the walk with me is now going to be held on November the 28th from 12 to 1:30 at the Comox Valley Art Gallery, and that's for elected officials. And later on at 1:30, they will do a report. They will report their launch, and a celebration would be held. So there is a recommendation there.
I'll move that council refer the Comox Valley Substance Use Strategy Phase 2 of Strategy Development to staff to report to council on financial support of Phase 2 of the strategy and elected official delegation to the collaborative.
Second.
All in favor? Carried. Correspondence. We received a request from the Cumberland Community School Society for a letter of support for their lunch program, after-school activities, and youth center, and the food share program. They are applying for a grant, and they would like us to support that request.
Yep. I'll move that council provide a letter of support for the Cumberland Community School Society's community gaming grant application to fund the operation of the lunch program, after-school activities, youth center, and food share program.
Second.
All in favor? Carried. Next, under reports, that council received the Cumberland Lake Park 2020 Park Operator Annual Report, and that council received the Cumberland Lake Park Annual Report presentation from Genevieve Burdett, Executive Director, Cumberland Lake Wilderness Society.
Move receipt.
Second.
All in favor? Carried.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I wrote the brief 2-page staff report, so I'll quickly introduce the report, and then Jen can explain what was another successful year out at Cumberland Lake Park. So very busy, still a few challenges, but no doubt the operators do it absolutely everything they had to maximize what is a beautiful park that we have. So I'll turn it over to Genevieve. And is Ian going to join, or do you want to introduce him? Okay, I'll let you introduce if you'd like. Otherwise, Ian will just be in the background.
Thank you. Awesome. Good evening, Mayor and Council and staff. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be back here in person. The report will give you a bit of color and context to the report and give you some highlights from the year. Figure out how to use this. So my name is Genevieve Burdett. I'm the Executive Director of the Cumberland Lake Wilderness Society. As you know, we are a local not-for-profit, and we have operated the campground and park out at the Comox Lake for the last 7 years. Our mission is to create wonder and connection through outdoor experiences, and we work hard to promote the 4-part goals that are listed on the slide there. So COVID presented a lot of challenges in the last 2 years, but it's also provided some opportunities. And camping is definitely one of those opportunities. We had a record-breaking year, 85% occupancy rate. That's a 22% increase from 2019, which is our most recent comparable year without any COVID closures. As a result, we were able to give over $38,000 in dividends to the village. That is a 41% increase from 2020, which is our most recent record-breaking dividend payment. I bring that up because I know the village invests a lot of money at Lake Park, and I want to highlight that you do get a return on your investment. And in addition, we also invested, similar to last year, over $50,000 back into the park and into the community through programs. Interest in and frequency of camping in North America has been on the rise for a number of years, and as I mentioned, COVID has only increased that demand. So yeah, we were busier than we've ever been, and we were completely full in July and August. We had a campfire ban, so we couldn't sell firewood. There was an ice shortage, so my staff joked that they worked in a store with nothing to sell. This is a breakdown of campground guests. It's very similar to last year. About a quarter of our guests are from the Comox Valley. And if we look at the breakdown of the Comox Valley guests, it's again really similar to last year. This just tells us what we already know, that the park is used by people from across the Comox Valley. Speaking of being used by people across the Comox Valley, we know that this is one of the only sanctioned and publicly accessible points for freshwater recreation in the entire Comox Valley. So the good news is that it's very popular. On the other hand, it's often over capacity on those really hot summer days. So here is Councillor Brown's photo from 2020. I need to get more photos. And so this is a problem I know you guys are all really familiar with, and we're all really committed to working on. In the written report on sections 3 and 5, day use and boat launch, I list a number of initiatives that both village staff and our organization, often in collaboration, have undertaken this year. Things like the digital signboard, rearranging the rear parking lot to create a few more parking spots, meeting with Ministry of Transport and Infrastructure to get some more no parking signs to allow for access on the road here so that emergency vehicles can get through. Also highlighted the new community patrol position the village funded was really helpful, and hopefully that'll be funded again next year. Taking a step back though, I think we can all agree that demand for freshwater recreation in the Comox Valley is only going to increase. And I think we all need to advocate for more publicly accessible freshwater recreation areas elsewhere in the Comox Valley to spread out the demand and the burden of providing these kinds of amenities. And I believe that the proposed regional park service is a really great mechanism through which to do this. Thanks to village investment in the concession in 2019, it's going strong, and our operators are planning to return for a third season next season and expand into breakfast offerings. Starting next year, CLWS will provide water sports rentals and summer camp services ourselves. This will allow us to directly control the price, the content, and safety to be in line with our vision and our mission, and it will allow the equipment to be used by our school and community programs. And of course, we're a proud local employer of Cumberland youth. We're lucky to have some of the best youth coming out and working with us. And we invest quite a bit in training for them as well. Outdoor education is a big part of what we do, and this year we invested over $29,000 in outdoor ed. We have two kind of areas. We focus on school programs and community programs. Our school programs we offer to grades 2 to 5 to schools in SD 71. This year we offered 34 full-day programs. The programs cost us about $400, and we offer them to classes for $100. And we'll waive that fee if it's a barrier for the class. And they can choose between a Forest Explorers program or a Water Keepers program in our new big Voyager canoes. So here, both programs, we work really hard to link it to the BC curriculum, which includes a lot of Indigenous content. So here is a testimonial from Gail Martindale. She's an Indigenous curriculum support teacher from SU 71. And here is our school water keepers program. It focuses on the watershed, and this is a testimonial from a grade 5 teacher. This is the second year that we've had a full-time park interpreter on site. And our park interpreter offers free community programs twice a day, 5 days a week. And they offer kids programs, watershed canoe tours, guided hikes, movie nights, guest speakers. I love this photo of these kids. Their little like park ranger vest on.
It looks like she's holding a bird. Is that what's happening?
I can't figure out what's
It's
going
a
on
fake
there,
bird.
actually.
It's a
Is
pretend.
that fake one?
It's a pretend bird.
Yeah. I
They're
love
they're
their
definitely
little
one with
fake,
nature up there.
binoculars there. Maybe that's what they were with.
Yeah.
In total, we offered over 100 free program hours to almost 800 participants. Here's one of our movie nights. In addition, we continue to offer our free Friday night music series. As I mentioned, our mission is to create wonder and connection is about connecting to nature, but also just connecting to each other in the community, and this is a great way we are able to build community and support local artists. Here's one of our free hikes and a little testimonial from one of the participants. And finally, a photo of our free community watershed tours. These tours are super popular, and we love them because there's just so many different things going on. Like there's community connection, there's watershed literacy, learning about the history of the area, getting connected to the place here, and also introduction to low-impact recreation in the form of canoeing. I should also note that the CVRD has supported this program for the last 2 years through a community arts and culture grant. This September, we were really excited to welcome Hand in Hand Early Years and Adventure Forest School to our site at Lake Park. They both offered early years programs, or they are offering early years programs and after-school programs. In total, they've created 52 new part-time and 22 new full-time childcare spaces in Cumberland. And as a parent of small children, I can tell you that's made a really big difference in the community. This is the first time in a number of years where I know there's spaces for preschool and after-school care in the community. This year we invested over $24,000 in projects at the park. There's a full list in section 9 of your report. Some of the highlights include a new roof on the picnic shelter. And here you can see one of the early years programs making use of the shelter. The playground. We invested over $7,000 in this nature playground design. So we worked with a landscape designer, an engineer, and a playground inspector to create this design. We also worked with local families who have children with special needs to choose elements that are universal in design. A lot of these elements are really open-ended, and they allow for a variety of skill levels to play with them. And the sand kitchen allows a wheelchair to park underneath of it. The design also includes new fencing, irrigation, soil, shrubs, and 3 new shade trees. So the total project cost is $70,000. We put aside $15,000 and raised another $11,000 from the following businesses and individuals. So thank you to all of you. Our goal is to raise half the project cost, $35,000, and we are working with village staff to see if we can get matching COVID-19 restart funding of $35,000 from the village. Obviously, this playground is really important for our community and for tourists, but I believe it's especially important considering the new childcare spaces that we've added out at Lake Park. I know the village recently got $3 million for 85 new childcare spaces, and so I did a little bit of math, and it's roughly about $35,000 per space per child. And I know that's comparing apples to oranges a little bit, but I think $35,000 is really good value for building a nature play space that will benefit our community, but also benefit 52 part-time and 22 full-time childcare spaces that directly serve our community. So that's my pitch. The areas around the campground get a lot of trampling because of the high use. We had over 2,500 groups of campers come through. So we have a volunteer on site. He does a lot of work doing revegetation, adding topsoil, logs, rocks, and native plants as well. Starting next year, we are going to give a percentage of our revenues to the Comox First Nation Guardian Program. This is a way for us to bring integrity and action to our acknowledgement that we operate on the unceded territory of the Comox First Nation. And this initiative has received support from Comox First Nation Chief and Council. Before I end, I just really want to acknowledge the integral role of the village in our success. It's really, village staff working behind the scenes, Parks and Rec, Public Works, that have set us up to be successful, even set us up to even have this not-for-profit relationship. And yeah, this truly is a collaborative success story, and so thank you to all of you.
Okay. Any questions from members of council? Councillor Sproul?
Not so much a question as a statement. It's overwhelming what you've done. Like, there's almost no aspects that you haven't touched. And when I think in the 22, I've been on various parks committees over the last 20 years, and it was nothing like this. We were always trying to figure out how to get a few more cars in. But the fact that you're really interpreting the nature and the beauty, it is world class. And we do need more of it, but I'm not sure where we're going to get more fresh water. But anyway, I'm really thrilled that there are all these programs that our kids, when they were in French immersion here, had to do outdoor ed courses. They went to Strathcona Lodge, who could do it in English and French. And the Strathcona Lodge also offers Duke of Edinburgh, and I can see these are all my dreams for Cumberland, and getting more people up the lake to go to the glaciers. So this is overwhelmingly great. Thank you.
Councillor Sullivan?
Thank you. Thanks for that, Genevieve. Yeah, you mentioned the collaboration with the village. I think several years ago, or 7 years ago, I guess, when we started this. This is better than I think we could have ever thought of, and super impressed with what you guys are doing down there. A couple questions, just for my own information. So the new walk-in sites, is there power up there?
No.
Okay. And I had a couple others, sorry. Reading that the cops were a no-show was a real disappointment, and that's something I'd like to get staff to look into. As we know, we pay healthily for our police services here, and to not receive them is very disconcerting, especially because of how far it is and how remote it is. Yeah, and so you want to know that you have backup when something dangerous is going to happen, and a no-show is not acceptable at all. So I'd like staff to look into that. And also, with the nothing to sell without firewood, how about merch? If you put Cumberland on a T-shirt anywhere, and I think the Wilderness Society is doing such a great job. I think people would be happy to support and pay for merch out there. And, yeah, that's just a suggestion. I think I had one more. Oh yeah, and I'm just curious as to what the car counter looks like and what's the story there.
Oh yeah, the car counter is the same brand as the village uses for tracking mountain bikers in the trails. So it's the same software.
So you just know that there's
Comox Lake Road
all the cars.
just to track one of our cars, so we can have a better sense of how much is used. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for your hard work and continued work. Thanks.
Councillor Brown?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much for this, Jen. It's an awesome report, and another banner year out there, and very much appreciated the 41% and the increase in dividends. Thank you. I had a similar question about the car counter. Do you have numbers yet, or no? Okay, so that's incoming. Wanted to thank you for involving the Ministry of Transport in that traffic situation out there. And I think the webcam could help along with the digital signboard. I totally am in favor of that. And also just appreciation for the childcare. I know you know how important that is, and it's such a great addition to have that out there, and also spreading the nature programming out in the community is awesome. I was wondering, so I did go back to the master plan, which is now, I don't know how many years old, and wondered if we might update that to see where we're at. If that would be helpful to you guys for planning. And I just know like a bunch of the stuff has been ticked off, and some of those things might have changed, and so maybe that's an opportunity for next year to sort of have some just tick some things off and relook at where we're going.
Yeah. I mean, Kevin can probably speak to that too,
Yeah.
but I know it's a really impressive master plan. It's really well done. So I think there's still so much more left for us to check off, but yeah, it would be nice to review it as well.
Yeah.
I see you standing, Kevin. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I can speak to that quickly. Yeah, the master plan was done in 2014, so it's about 7 years old now, so it's a little earlier than we would typically do another one. Like, I think I can't remember whether it's a 5 or 20, or sorry, a 10 or a 20-year plan. That being said, I think it's an awesome visionary document, and I think it laid the groundwork for, the creation of the Wilderness Society. That being said, there's a lot of details within it that weren't really within the scope of the plan, and that's some of the challenges that we're arriving at now, is figuring out what is the details around boat launch design, say, or the front area design, which had a great vision, but I think there's elements that are probably not practical given the information we have now.
Yeah.
So there are elements that I think will come back to council. I'm not sure whether it would be kind of a whole package or maybe a little bit more piecemeal, just around, okay, as we look at changing the waterfront, where this park can kind of fit versus what the master plan said versus, what we think now 7 years later in a community that's running. But I think largely the vision and a lot of the kind of the guiding objectives remain relevant to this day, and we're still working to some of the details.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Councillor Kettler?
Thanks, Mayor. And thanks, Genevieve. I think I echo all the councillors' comments around how amazing the change has been. That you've really elevated the service level out there, and it's wonderful to see. And I've heard really good things about the children's programming as well, so that's great. And yes, we do appreciate that dividend payment. I think every year we have reinvested it back out into the park, and I don't think that this year is going to be any different. I'm just wondering about, from staff's perspective, is that something that we're investing separately from the park itself? So the request today to have restart funds go to that park, it would be inclusive of the dividend funds that we would consider reinvesting, or not inclusive?
I don't have the answer right in front of me, but the report, it'd be a separate request. That's not part of that's the restart is all separate funding, so it would be
Right.
looked at as a separate request.
A
compared
separate
to,
budget request
yes,
from that.
correct.
Okay, thanks. And then just to speak to access at other parts of the lake, I know that's something that we are looking at, and we are still in the early stages of the possible creation of a regional park service. But the Whites Bay property purchase, that was purchased through the water service, and Cumberland is not part of that service, as we have our own water system. But it was purchased for watershed protection, so it's not necessarily something that we would look at from Parks' perspective. And then as you go farther along, then there's the bioreserve area, and then the private fish and game area. So the access is very complicated. There's not a lot out there, unfortunately. So I'm not sure where we would go, but we'll still, talk about it. And I think we would like to talk more about the boat launch itself, and and the management of that. So hopefully we can have further discussion with the society about that. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Brule, you had an additional question?
There was also a request from the society, well, a comment that the new community patrol was helpful to you and that you would like to hope that will continue. I was really thrilled because I actually didn't know about that, so I'm glad that we were able to provide something that helps.
I just have two questions. In the past, some of the people that put their boats in are not getting a pass. Is that getting less and less people now?
Yeah, we don't have the stats on that. We do, our staff patrol the parking area, and they leave courtesy tickets on vehicles that don't have a pass to ask them to come and pay. But I didn't collect statistics on that, so we could do that next year to find out what percentage are not paying.
And it would be nice to know where they're from, if you could include that also.
If they come in and pay, we can
Yes. And the other thing is, I noticed in your graph that you have 100% usage of certain campsites. And I think you highlighted, there's 5 in there. So is that the ones on the water or another?
Yeah, the RV sites on the water and the back row as well on the water there are some of the most popular sites. But
Okay.
there are quite a few sites in July and August that are at 100% occupancy.
Yes.
I suppose all of them, because
Well,
we
this.
had 100% occupancy those
Yeah.
2 months.
Yeah. Well, you did extremely well during COVID. And it was definitely a challenge for a lot of people. And I want to thank you very much for your report. Love the pictures. And it makes a huge difference seeing something like that in a presentation. It really makes the connection. So thank you very much for you and for the board for all the work that you do out at the Lake Park. It has become something that we are very proud of as a community. Thank you.
Well, thank you guys.
Next, that council receive the heritage alteration permit and development variance application 2714 Dunsmuir Avenue report.
Waive receipt.
Second.
All in favor? Carried.
Through the mayor to council. So before I start, perhaps it would be great to put that report up, Rachel, if you'd mind. I'd like to explain just a little bit with a visual because it gets it's a lot easier. Oh, I can use that. Okay. So this is just I just want to review a little bit about the building here. So I think this drawing will help. So I just want to explain a little bit with respect to the massing as we get into this report, because something has just come to our attention too with respect to the height of the building, or a portion of the building, I should say. So staff has received some questions about the height of the building and whether there's a 5th story. So just to show you here, it has 4 stories. There's a pitched roof here, which kind of is to mirror the pitched roof on the on the big store across the way. This is shown on the drawings, and this is it's labeled on the drawings. Penthouse is not a 5th floor. It's the elevator shaft and the staircase and mechanical room, which is permitted under zoning to be above height. And then the heritage alteration permit does include a guideline that rooftop mechanical equipment shall be hidden behind screens and parapets, designed to be an integral part of the building to conceal the equipment. So the architect's interpretation of that to hide this was to put this pitched roof on, and a portion of the mechanical room is actually just underneath this roof. However, technically speaking, so we have looked into this just a little bit more because of this question came up. this part of the roof puts the building above height. And as you said, the electrical mechanical is acceptable to be above height. A portion of this rooftop, technically this part potentially could be considered screening, but it's not technically a parapet. So a portion of the roof really is above height and would require height variance as part of if this particular design goes forward. So I just want to put that right at the outset. So there's a little bit of a procedural issue with this now. If this design goes forward and a height variance is required, then while we would like this evening to get a sense from council on the heritage alteration permit and how the guidelines, and if you feel the guidelines have been met, we would have to come back with also a height variance for that portion of the pitched roof, which, is this. Because that puts it above the height by 1.4 meters. So that's the zoning bylaw. So that while the heritage alteration permit guideline wants some screening for the mechanical and rooftop features, the zoning bylaw still has a height maximum. So it meets technically, that's an architectural interpretation to meet the screening requirement under the heritage alteration permit guidelines, but unfortunately there's also variance required. So I overlooked that. So that's to start out. And then I'll just I'll just go over the report just briefly. So there's two items in front of you, and certainly the parking variances requests a decision and can be made this evening. That is not affected by by that height variance question, which is integral to the HAP because of the slanted roof being an architectural feature. So I'll start with the parking variances, just briefly. There's a whole number of things going on here too. So the parking required is based on the staff calculation, based on the assumed use of the commercial spaces and the known use of the residential spaces. So the total parking requirement based on that is 22 spaces and 2 commercial loading spaces. So the variance request is to reduce the parking by 8 spaces and reduce the loading required by 0. And then within, if the total parking requirement is above a certain number, some special parking designation requirements also kick in. So they're not additional spaces, they are designations of some of the spaces that are required. So there's 4, which is on the front cover of the report. 1 for persons with a disability, 1 for pregnant women, persons with young children, 1 for electric vehicle, 1 for recreational vehicle or tour bus. So the applicant has requested to reduce the parking stall designation requirements to 0. The staff has one of the appendices attachments does provide a little bit more of analysis of the parking requirements, and certainly if you have questions, I'm here to answer them. The short version is that staff does recommend to waive the electric vehicle or tour bus requirement designation because it's not really the kind of business that would attract such a use. And to also waive this designation for pregnant women and persons with young children space. And the reason for that is, while that is an important type of designation in this context, staff felt it doesn't make it doesn't seem to make too much sense. Usually pregnant women, persons with young children parking designations is in the context of, say, a large commercial space where there's a huge parking lot and that parking can be provided close to the entrance. In this case, they could be going anywhere downtown, and so having a special designation of that kind close to this particular development doesn't, in a staff's opinion, make sense. So the variance that we are suggesting is for just the recreational vehicle and tour bus and pregnant women, persons with young children, not for the persons with a disability or electric vehicle stall. And staff is also recommending not to vary the other parking requirements for the regular stalls. And you can find the variance request, I think, is at the very end of the report, the actual variance. Is that right? Yeah, the development variance is at the very end on page 85. So you will see what we're recommending to vary. The other item to vary, staff is recommend to vary the off-street loading stalls, which there is a requirement of 2. And the reason for that is the zoning bylaw does seem to make a provision if it could be provided on the street. Currently other businesses, I guess it's fairly common in Cumberland that businesses use the streets as for loading informally, just to pull over, unload. It's very difficult to provide that on this kind of smaller lots that we have, so staff is recommending to vary that as well. So for those, for the other regular stalls that would not be varied, cash and lieu would be due. And that would be collected at building permit, and then at that point we may have a better sense of the final uses that would be in the building. So then the actual cash and lieu would depend on the use that might be evident at time of building permit. Okay. Do you want to deal with that separately, or should I go to the HAP?
You can finish.
Okay, I finished. Okay, so then the heritage alteration permit, staff reviewed the how the building, the proposed development meets the design guidelines, and you can see the report here. Sorry, the visual on the screen there shows a little bit of shows the massing of the building quite well. So that seemed to be the major concern that the public expressed in their comments to council, and most of the comments were received prior to the last council meeting were included as part of that report, and a few additional ones were provided as part of this current report at this meeting. So this particular visual was provided by the architect and shows that there is a setback a little bit from the main. The building is massed towards the corner for sure of Dunsmuir and 2nd Street. The pitched roof is to add interest, as I said, and kind of mirror what's happening at the big store on the other side. Then the building is also set, the balconies are set in, not set out, so that reduced the mass somewhat. And then the balcony is also set back. When you look at the one at the bottom here, you can see that this is set back a little bit from Dunsmuir, and then also set back a little bit from the neighboring building. And then when you look on 2nd Street, it's similar, so that it's set back towards the lane. So you can, that's probably the 2nd Street ones here, so you can see it a little bit better here. So it's set back towards the lane. And then it's lower here, that's the parking garage right here. And then there's a little patio seating area in the middle there for that commercial space that runs down below here, so on Dunsmuir. So 4 stories are permitted by the zoning bylaw. So given, and I know the public concern is the mass of the building and the height of the building. So the staff interpretation is, since it's permitted in the zoning bylaw, this kind of design does seem to address some of does try to reduce the massing and impact on the street, other than the prominence here, which is an architectural feature. So it really perhaps is a little bit of a matter of taste. The building also has a bit, they've added a setback here to create a bit of an outdoor seating area. I just think I'll just show, maybe, I guess I can advance that, so 1 second. This shows that it's set back. This is on Dunsmuir Avenue, so the building is in line with the adjacent building here. The top floor, the floor of this, the first floor here, to kind of to not overwhelm this building, but then the second, third, fourth stories start a little bit setback. So that respects that building on that side. The window patterns do reflect some of the window patterns in elsewhere in the downtown core, the mullions, the kind of divisions in the windows. The corner here, as I said, is prominent, and they cut the corner here for the door, which mirrors what is happening at the Cumberland Hotel. So that was a design feature that was added by the architect. Let's see, what else do we have there? Yeah, there's that orange kind of setback there. There's a setback into the building as well, which adds some interest and makes it a little bit less. Well, it helps keeping interest on the facade of the building. So, let me see what else. What would help you here? So this is a take from the street corner. So this is what the mass would look like on the street corner. So it's, as I said, it's pitched to the front of this corner here, but it does then more easily respect the buildings on this side and also to the lane. It creates less of an impact on the building behind on the other side of the lane. Yeah, so with that, I mean, there's a whole number of guidelines which we summarize in attachment number 2. So if there's particular questions, I'm happy to answer that, but that's essentially the summary. With respect to the committee comments, so the accessibility committee reviewed it, and the architect has confirmed that it meets all the accessibility requirements for under the building code. It also has an elevator, which is not required under the building code. So they did include an elevator in the building. The entrance to the residential areas of 2nd Street, right in here. The materials are not natural materials. They are, but they are meant to reflect some of the traditional materials on the sidings. And I think, did we include the staff report has the materials and colors schemes on page 81 and 80 and 81. I guess it's 81. So they're putting the proposal here is to have shingles on this side, but it's a plastic composite, and then have kind of a lengthwise type of material on this side of the building. So those that do seem to good. Those do reference other buildings in the downtown core that have that kind of look. The Riding Fools Hostel has wooden shingles, and the reason they didn't choose wood is because it's harder to maintain. It's also there's more issues with fire safety, so the replacement, the plastic composite, was seen as a good replacement for that. Well, plastic. I'm probably not using the right word. Yes, thank you. I'm not. Yeah, it's not a wood material, but it tries to imitate that look. Thank you. Yeah. So yeah.
Okay. All right, Councillor Sullivan, we'll start with you.
You started with me last time.
No, I thought I started
Your
with
Honor,
Councillor
Your
Sproul.
Worship.
If you like, I will start with somebody else.
I apologize. I'm just joking. Thank you. Thanks, Karen. Well, this is fun that I get to start. Okay. Well, my opinion, which differs in a lot of other people in the village, I find that these guys have done a pretty reasonable job. I know there's a lot of adversity to crushing something beloved in a town and building something instead of it. So I'll give these guys a bit of credit for really digging in, and I found that they have met a lot of the requirements that the village has put in front of them. Now, I mean, the massing and form, as we're seeing right now, these are a lot better pictures than our report had, I'll give you that, and the rest of the village needs to see some of those previous slides that we saw. Because for me personally, that actually even makes it look a little bit better to me. yeah, I don't think that the form and character necessarily fits the historical aspect of our village per se. I remember reading in a previous report about this about possible awnings and stuff, maybe bringing out some things. I don't think that was carried through into this. It does, like the boxy squareness is a little bit uncharacteristic to, like obviously the Cumberland Hotel, nothing's going to look like the Cumberland Hotel. So we have to forget about that. We move forward to the future of our village, and I'm not, I like this enough. You know, I don't know what else to say. I find that these guys are trying to meet a lot of the conditions that we're requiring. With the committee recommendations, okay, well first I'll get to the height variance. What's my question about that? I don't want it to be higher, so I'm not really interested in varying any height. So what happens then?
Yeah, so let me just go back to this here. So like I said, so the heritage alteration permit guidelines say these kind of mechanical equipment spaces, I mean, this is a whole building, sorry, it is enclosed already. It should be hidden from view with a parapet. So the architectural interpretation is that to put a roof slant up against this, and part of this equipment is actually under this roof, on this portion of the roof, and then he slants it back this way to make it an integral part of the building, which does seem to meet the guidelines. However, the zoning bylaw is pretty clear that a height variance would be needed in this case.
Was that 1.7 meters, you said?
I think it's
1.4, you said.
1.4 meters over, yes. So possibly, yeah. So we would have to, if you know, so the option of the architect is, or the developer, is to cut off the roof, but then you'd lose that interest, especially from the street level.
So basically the variance is just going to make it look nicer instead of just having these.
Well, he would have to, or it would have to, it could potentially be cut off here, right, if there's no height variance, so that slant is cut off.
That's a pretty intense view of that building. When you look at it like that with the patch next to it, it definitely raises some concerns about its monolithic stature. Yeah. Okay. What else do I have?
Sorry.
Yeah. Some of the committee recommendations. I mean, I don't know how far we can get into those, or how we require some of these things. I would like to see some more of the materials from the inside and stuff, what they're mentioning here. Yeah, and just with the form and function, or form and character, and the awnings thing, I mostly support this. I don't know, moving forward, this is what the village is going to look more like. We have buildings that are similar to this going up already. But I would like to see some awnings or something. I'd like to get closer to what some of the recommendations would be from the Heritage Committee. That's what I got so far. Oh, I guess I'll go through the recommendations. I agree with staff's recommendations about I don't permit or don't condone any parking breaks at all, except for the staff recommended ones. So no parking variances from me.
Okay. Okay, Councillor Brown.
Thank you. Thanks for starting, Councillor Sullivan. I do appreciate the articulation of the building and the varying, whatever they're called, setbacks up above. And also appreciate that pitch, which now has to go. And the ground level indents, for lack of the proper word. I also appreciate, because I think on top of awnings, which I'd love to see awnings, they just add scale and also a place to hide when it's pouring rain, which seems to do really a lot here. So I am concerned about the 5s. It clearly states on the application that it is an application for a 5-story building. They do mention a penthouse and rooftop amenities. So I think, given now that we will be looking at a variance, should they move forward with this, what I had, what I was going to suggest is that that corner come back, so the top floor on the corner, in the brown part, or if, ideally, actually removing that floor, so those two apartments in the brown on the top, and pitching that roof, so that it has some character. I think that this is, well, I don't think, I know that this will be the largest building in our downtown core. It is covers the span of 3 lots. It is 4 stories tall. And that is something that will forever change the character of the downtown core. So I think it's important that we take our time with this application and make sure that it is something that's going to not detract from the character and charm that draws all these people to our village. People don't travel from the North Island to cruise the streets of Comox or Courtenay. They come from the North Island to cruise the streets of Cumberland, and there's a reason for that. And that reason is it's very pedestrian friendly and has some interesting character. And I'm not necessarily opposed to 4 stories, but 4 stories over 3 lots is significantly different than 4 stories on a single skinny lot. Yeah, I'm not in favor of this design. I'm also not in favor of varying the parking, accessible parking. I appreciate that the building is accessible, but there's no point in making a building accessible if you don't have an accessible parking spot. Because where is that person who is in a wheelchair going to park their vehicle? I also think that the electric charging station should be provided, whether that's inside the building. As I understand, the parking system is ready to go for EV charging. It's just not included in this application yet, so I would encourage that. I really appreciate the renaming to the Cumberland. I think that is much, much better than the Eddy. It helps mitigate the loss of that social gathering spot. I also like the idea that was suggested in some of the committees that there be angle parking on 2nd Street, and perhaps that would give more space for parking. What else do I want to say? I appreciated the 3D drawings. Thank you very much. I was going to ask for those. It really helps understand the scale of the building. And I do think the scale from Dunsmuir is great. That articulation and the stepping up mitigates the potential box that it could have been. So I do appreciate that. I just think that 2nd Street corner needs to come back somehow so that it's not a big box hovering over that corner in relation to the big store. And, you know, I went through the OCP again around this to see where our responsibility lies, and the heritage conservation areas is specifically meant to ensure that development in this zone respects the history and enhances the character and heritage value. I don't find that this building enhances the character and heritage value of the downtown core. I think it detracts from it. And while I appreciate the investment in our community and hope we can move forward, I'd like to see one less floor on that brown section so that it is not so imposing from that angle. And I'll stop there for now.
Okay, Councillor Kettler?
Thanks. Yeah, so I was looking at some of the Heritage Committee recommendations, and they did request the updated photographic renderings with views from all four sides and including the courtyard and some of that stuff, and so appreciate that that has happened. I think that's very helpful for us and for the public. Yeah, I don't mind the design. I think it's pretty good. I think with the massing and the setbacks, it does the job of not being superimposing on the darker colored apartments. And the materials, I think, is good, that they are trying to use materials that look natural, but of course will be durable enough that they're not going to require a bunch of maintenance. I want to know a little bit more about the elevator that is being screened right now. Is that the car elevator, the 14 car elevator?
No, so that is the elevator for the building. Whoops, so you see a cut, here's a cut through the building. Oh no, it doesn't show it there. I think in the staff report, the architectural drawing that is attached to the HAP, it's probably the best place to see the elevator. So even a drawing, one of the drawings that shows one of the floors, like A2.2, page 74 of your report. Or even 73. 73 is the ground floor, and then 74 is the next floor up.
Okay.
So perhaps we could, perhaps if you look at page 73, A21, A2.1, you see Dunsmuir on the left of the drawing. Sorry, Second Street is on the left of the drawing. There's the entrance, and there's a stairway right there.
Yeah.
And there's a door to the side of the stairs, and that goes to the elevator. There's a little thing, a lobby area. So the elevator is pretty much in the middle of the building. So that's to serve the residents.
So going back to the other
Residences.
picture, because it looks like it's a much larger
Sorry, no.
structure jutting out from the top than just an elevator.
Yeah, that's right. So what's at the top is the apartment elevator staircase, so that you can get to the elevator to service the elevator.
Okay.
And then also a mechanical equipment, a mechanical shaft and electrical utility room to service the elevator. So, and other mechanical electrical equipment in the building, I guess, assume.
So what if we, instead of giving a variance for height, if we waive the requirement to screen the rooftop equipment with a parapet? Is that
the
also
pitch.
a possibility?
So the screening does not have to be required. You could say it doesn't have to be screened in any way. It just means then you would lose, this is the little piece that's above height, right? So you would lose that roof line. I mean, if that's even feasible, I think it's fair to let the architect take a look and the owner, right? So this is the piece that's possible, that's somewhat over height, like that tip there.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that, just under 1.5 meters will make a difference for people on the street level, from an aesthetic point of view. I don't know. I do like the design. I think it's nicer than having a flat roof all the way across. It breaks it up in a nice way. So I actually don't want to see that removed. Yeah, I think the design's okay, and I think that they've done a lot to try and meet the requirements of the heritage area. And as far as the parking, they've also put in that car elevator, which is a new thing. We haven't seen that before, and we're always getting pushback from developers about doing underground parking, but this is an innovative thing, having a parking elevator, and it helps obviously meet a lot of the parking requirements on site, which we want to see, and I think that's really positive. So I would be willing to do what staff recommends as far as denying the request about the 8 stalls and the disabled parking, but giving them waivings for the special parking for tour buses and loading. And yeah, just one more thing about the Heritage Committee. They asked for a commemoration plan on the interior of the building. Just wondering how that would come to be. Would that be something we would need to request today in a motion, or is it something that you discuss with them through planning?
Yeah, so right now, the way the heritage alteration permit is written, it does ask for that prior to building permit, or it can be submitted at the time of building permit. Let's see what, let me just scroll to that. And yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I should have mentioned that. So on page 68 is the actual heritage alteration permit. And at the top, where it says required before building permit is approved, it says a commemoration plan of the old Cumberland Hotel developed with the previous owner and the Cumberland Museum and Archives, and with input from the Heritage Committee outlining how the old Cumberland Hotel will be commemorated within the new building. So
Yeah.
commemoration plans, yeah, they show what kind of elements might be, could maybe be shown in the building, or could there be some old historic photos. So the applicant has identified a couple things. There's the historic plaque, of course, that's on the Cumberland Hotel. And then there's also a saw blade that's embedded in the rafters below the building. So that's something they would like to retrieve and display in this building. And then I think it's really working with the Cumberland Museum and Archives and the previous owner to collect some of the stories about the building, and that was really important to the Heritage Committee too. It's not just visuals, it's also stories, and how do you capture the stories in the new building. So I think it's really an effort that the Cumberland Museum and the previous owner would want to be involved in, and that's what the applicant suggested. They would work with them to come up with this plan, and that would go to the Heritage Committee for comment and their knowledge and expertise on
Yeah, and I think that
heritage.
is an attempt at enhancement of the heritage, and I think that's also fits into what we're looking for. So that's great to see. And in general, I do support the application. So, thank you.
Councillor Sproul?
Well, there isn't a lot of material to cover after listening to the rest of council. It seems that the thing that causes most consternation amongst the citizens is the height of the building. If there's anything we can do to pull it back, like it sounds to me that there are things that can be done to reduce the height. So anything will be good to do. Parking, we haven't really talked a lot about that yet, but I don't. I want council to deny the request to reduce the parking stalling requirement, which they were asking for 8 stalls to be not built. But one thing I don't understand is if they don't, if all the cars don't fit in the parking elevator, the Klaus parking elevator, the rest will park, or is there room in the building for all the cars that they have to have? So what happens to those cars? What happens? Where do they put them? Just
They pay in lieu.
okay. Oh yeah. Right. Thank you. I really do agree that they have worked, the developers have done well to break up the mass by all the different angles. They've worked really hard at that because we've seen different iterations. And the green and the balcony, and I like that corner view. Although I do feel it's a bit of a big city look, but enough trees around. What else did I want to say? Geez, so many things I've forgotten them now. The atrium in the middle. So there's there's two open areas within the outside of the building, correct? There's a open area in the middle.
Yeah, so there's this recess here right on Dunsmuir, so it's recessed a bit from the street. And like Councillor Brown pointed out, yeah, these kind of recesses that do add interest to the building. And I guess this is obviously the entrance, that there's a recess there. And then that's the entrance. I got to go the other way. I hope I'm not getting you dizzy. So, so when you look at it from here, this is, let's see, I need to orient myself 1 second. Yeah, that's 2nd Street. Yes, thank you. That's 2nd Street, that's Dunsmuir. So there's a bit of an open area patio here, so the idea was that that could be connected to that commercial space potentially. So it depends what the use is on that space, whether they would use that or not. But it is an open area that, that can be utilized for just a little bit of an internal atrium.
Does it bring light into that center? Has the atrium got a glass roof to
It's
it?
open.
Oh, it's open to the stars.
Yeah.
It's gonna be pretty shady there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sun is coming into the front of the building all day.
You know, it's their better drawing.
Cool in the summer.
She's lucky.
I'm just sorry. I'm just looking if there's another drawing, but I don't think so. Before I've flipped through the whole thing, but
Oh, well, I gather that there is light coming in. And the last thing about the parking elevator, it says that if you want to be able to include accessibility issues, that it's going to mean that the elevator has to be bigger, because they have to be able to fit wheelchairs.
yeah. So the parking system, it's a certain width here, so the vehicles drive in, and then it's moved to wherever there's a space, right? So there's actually 15 spaces, but only 14 can ever be occupied, because you gotta shuffle them around to then make a space available again at the bottom for the next one to drive in. So that width here is not enough for wouldn't qualify for a parking space for people with disabilities, and that would be challenging to do. So they do, under the zoning bylaw, have the option to pay cash in lieu for the special designation parking spaces, as well as for the regular parking spaces. So that's an option. It's at the option of the owner.
Just while we're on this, I've never seen one. What's the process? How long does that take, that parking?
You know, you can go online, Klaus multi-park system,
Yeah,
and there's quite a nice video.
Okay, I'll check it out.
I mean, you don't sit in it, right? You drive the car in, you get out,
Yeah.
and it moves it
Oh, it
to
does it.
wherever there's a space, I guess.
So you just punch in your car and then it shows up, I think.
Yeah, it finds it when you look, when you want it, it brings it back down, yes.
Open your fob and
Are you finished, Councillor Brown? Ms. Brewer?
Yeah, yes, I think so.
I was really pleased to see the new pictures. They made quite a difference in the presentation, and it's unfortunate that the public didn't get to see them. I think it would have made a lot of difference to a lot of people. I only have two questions, and that is concerning the pitched roof. We have a tendency to get a lot of snow here. I know on the building across the street, the patch, or in my day it was the John Cliffs building. In the winter, that sidewalk would have to be closed off because of the snow coming down onto the street. Not only the snow, but the icicles, and it became very dangerous. So what is the precaution with that one, with the pitched roof?
Yeah, so I mean, it's not as steep a pitch, but nonetheless, yeah, what you do to retain snow, you usually put something at the bottom of the roof that keeps the snow back, that anchors the snow in place in some way, so it has to melt to come down, so it can't come down in a huge slab. So the building code would presumably specifies that. It's something that I'd have to check with the building inspector, but yeah, you put something on the roof, on the edge of the roof, so that the snow can't slide down in a big slab.
I imagine in some of the ski resorts they have those already, so that they don't come down on the people. Yeah. The other question I have is on Dunsmuir Avenue, how much property is separating this building from the other building that's there? So if they want to do repairs to their building, is there enough area in between for them to get to their building?
You know, the setback is a zero lot line. It's zero lot line, so they can build right up against the side of this building, pending, fire code requirements. So they have to put a firewall in between.
So the other owner of the property can't get to their building to do repairs?
From that side, they couldn't. No, it can get built right up against it. Yeah, not from the outside.
So what happens if something happens to that building? How do they fix it?
They have to get out from the inside. I mean, it's all buildings. They can be about it right up against each other.
Okay. All right.
Fix it first.
If you can. Yeah. Okay. I agree with your recommendations in the proposal. Yeah. I have no problem with the design. I think it looks way better than it did when they originally did it. They've obviously paid attention. Yes, Councillor Brown.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to the fact that it's over height. So we can't approve it today, as I understand, because it is over height. And it also says that it's a 5-story building, and we don't allow 5-story buildings in the downtown core. So I think we need to send it back for some updates. The Heritage Committee also asked to see it again. I think they just wanted to see photos, so I'm not sure if that's possible. And maybe we could ask for some options for that Second and Dunsmuir corner. Because I think we are all appreciating the pitch of that roof and don't want to lose it, because then it does become a giant box. But we need to deal with the over height piece and the fact that it says it's 5 stories.
No, I think this is also a terminology issue. So the applicants call the top floor, which is really the elevator shaft and the and the staircase and electrical room, they call that penthouse. It's on the drawings, so it says penthouse, but it means the 5th floor. So I think we commonly here think of that as a dwelling, but it's not a dwelling. It's like the top one. It's just really that space for the elevator shaft, stairs.
So the recommendation from staff would be to take this back and include the other variants on height before any of this is approved?
Well, unfortunately, I think we have to.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
And would you think this would come back to council? Because I have a follow-up to this.
you know, I don't control the agenda.
Okay. So it's paperwork that would have to be done to bring back. Is there any possibility that the village people could get to see these pictures before the next meeting that it comes to council?
Well, so the other, if since there's, we do need to go through the variance process, there's a requirement to send out a notice to the neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
And that usually includes some kind of visual. That's to the immediate neighbors.
Yeah.
I mean, the applicant, I can check with the applicant if they can post this, or we can certainly post this because this was provided on our.
Well, I think it's such an important part to the village. It would be really be nice to see the reaction of the residents. I'm sure we would hear from them as to what they see in the changes that have been presented. And it would be nice to let them know that and see it, if that's possible. I'm not asking for another public information session or something, but just to let the residents know that they can go online and see these drawings.
So do we have to move to refer it to
Back to staff?
staff to bring forward with the variance for height? Is that the motion that you?
Yes, I see Courtney. Would you like to say something, Courtney?
Yeah, sure, I'll just, hang on a second.
It's gonna, might be a blast.
Yeah. Hello.
Yes.
Yes, the recommendation to refer back to staff would be appropriate. In particularly to come back with information about the height variance. It'd be helpful to be specific about the reason for the referral is it's only about the height variance unless you decide it's about more than that. Yeah.
Well, we would want to address all of the variances at that.
Yeah, no, if I could clarify, just because the discussion covered so many topics, if you wanted to provide any additional direction that came up in the discussion in the referral back to staff, that you could do that. That's what I meant.
Yeah, I would like to see the whole package come back.
I think we also talked about awnings, and we talked about a setback of the 4th floor from 2nd and Dunsmuir, and can't remember what else. So it's more than a height variance.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the setback myself. I would like to see the awnings, but so I don't know that we're all in agreement on what things we want to see come back.
Yes. But if they bring the report back, we're all going to have our opinions again, whether we support it or not support it. The proponent is here and is listening.
Yeah, and it would be better if we were very specific about what we
Yes.
want to see come back. And for me, that is definitely options around the height. And yeah, the awnings, everything else I'm good with. I already had my question answered about the commemorative Cumberland Hotel stuff on the interior, so yeah.
So if you would like to make a motion,
Okay, I'll move to refer to staff to bring us back both the heritage alteration permit and development variance permit for 2714 Dunsmuir, as well as options for the height variance and awnings.
do we have a seconder?
Second.
Is there any further discussion?
I just wonder, I mean, you've heard the discussion has happened around options for that, for retaining that pitch. I think we're in agreement about that we do want to keep a pitch if possible, so that would be a clarifying in the, so however you said, with the pitch in front of roof. roof height? Options for a height variance that that retains the pitch, if at all possible. Oh,
Friendly.
Yeah, I'll amend it to include Councillor Brown's. Yeah.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Very good discussion.
thanks, Karen.
Next, recommend that council receive the temporary use permit application 4693 Cumberland Road report.
Move receipt.
Second.
All in favor? Carried.
To Mayor and Council, this application is for the Hartley's Garage, and is for a temporary use permit for a 3-year period, which is the maximum that a temporary use permit can be issued initially. The application came to you earlier this fall in late September, and was reviewed by the Advisory Planning Commission, and the Advisory Planning Commission recommended approval of the temporary use permit for Hartley's Garage. Which is also that recommendation is also supported by staff. Yeah, I think that's really all I have to say to this one. You've seen this before, so the only other thing to add is that the Advisory Planning Commission also recommended no action has to be taken on this at this point, but I think we will be doing that anyway as part of the next CP update, that intersection be looked at a little bit more closely because of all the changes in use there in Bevan area. So.
Okay, I'll move that council approve the temporary use permit 2021-01 TUP to permit an automobile service and repair shop at 4693 Cumberland Road, property legally described as Lot A, District Lot 24, Plan VIP 56393.
Second.
Second. All in favor? Carried. Recommend that council receive development variance permit 2552 Kendall Avenue.
Move receipt.
Second.
All in favor? Carried.
So I do apologize that Milena is going to introduce this report, and I guess our new system of being in person is I'm sending her messages, but she's not here yet. She's next door. No, here she is.
Ah,
Yay!
Sorry about that. Work out these gigs.
Nice stall.
Oh, the last item went really fast. Oh, so now you're up. I'm here. Yes, thank you.
We saved all our discussion for the previous item. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be easy.
Now we're burning through the rest.
Yes,
Oh,
you
you're
can give-
over there.
Yeah, we're there.
All right. I think this is all right, so the village has received an application for development variance permit to vary the maximum lot coverage to allow for the addition of a sunroom at the rear of an existing single-family dwelling. The addition, or the proposed addition, is compliant with zoning bylaw 1027 for setbacks and height. The existing principal dwelling on the property was built in 2016 at the maximum permitted lot coverage of 35%. The home is approximately 1,000 square feet, and at the rear of the dwelling is a 1.2 by 3 meter covered patio. The applicant wishes to enclose the patio and increase the dimensions to 3 by 3.7 meters, which would result in a 2.3% lot coverage increase, which would be over the maximum of 35. So enclosing the existing at-grade patio to remain within the permitted lot coverage would create a really narrow sunroom. And the applicant is proposing to increase the lot coverage by that 2.3% to allow for a more practical, usable space.
Questions? No. Okay, someone like to move?
I'll move that council approve the application for a development variance permit on the property described as Lot 15, DL 24, Nelson District, Plan EPP 533582552, Kendall Avenue.
Second.
Second, all in favor? Carried. Next, we have that council received development permit 2872 Alverston Avenue.
Move receipt.
Second.
All in favor? Carried.
All right, thank you. So this is coming before you a second time after going to the Advisory Planning Committee. So the purpose of this report is to seek council approval on the ADU application. Once again, the property owners of 2872 Alverston wish to construct a 48.8 meter squared ADU at the rear of the property. The application and supporting documents comply with all development permit area guidelines and zoning bylaw requirements. At the APC meeting, the APC members recommended approval.
Any questions? Councillor Brown?
Just in regard to waiving the neighborhood meeting, have we had any, we have had no complaints or concerns or anything?
Nope.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Kettler?
So next, we're going to talk about the amendments to local government legislation. And so just referring those amendments back to this application, would it, so the meeting would already be waived, a public meeting under those new guidelines?
Potentially, I have not read the guidelines
Okay.
in full detail, just skimmed at this point.
Okay, no worries.
Courtney's rising.
I'm sorry, can you just repeat the question about which public meeting?
Yeah, so I'm just wondering with the new local government legislation,
Yeah.
proposed Bill 26, it actually does away with some the requirement for some public meetings, and also is trying to streamline the application process. I guess, would we even see this
Yeah.
development permit? And would it automatically waive that public meeting through that legislation?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Local governments can already delegate a development permit issuance to staff, which isn't something that the village has done, but that's something already allowed. So that isn't changed by Bill 26.
Okay.
And as well, so the short answer is no, it doesn't actually impact development permits like this. It removes the requirement for public hearings with zoning amendments. So that's just a little bit different.
Okay, and so this, and the process we could streamline, but it's not going to be required to be streamlined through this bill?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
Okay.
So
Sorry, go ahead.
I'll move that council approve the application 2021-09 DP for development permit on property described as Lot 15 DL 24 Plan VIP 77088 2872 Alverston Avenue.
Second.
Second, all in favor? Carried. Next, recommend that council receive the amendments to local government legislation proposed in Bill 26 report for information.
Move receipt.
Second.
All in favor? Carried.
So this is a brief report, and just to advise you of these changes to the local government legislation that are going through the legislature. No action is recommended at this time. And the report lists what the highlights of this legislation are. So if there's any questions at this time, I'm happy to answer them. And otherwise, this will be a topic of future work.
Okay. Questions from council members? Councillor Brown?
Can we work this into our big fat grant?
Yes.
Excellent.
The timing is excellent.
Yes.
Yes. In particular, the allowing for delegation of decision on minor variances.
Very timely.
Awesome.
Councillor
Thank you.
Sullivan?
I was just going to say the same thing, that it's nice that we'll be informed through our development approvals process modernization project. Perfect timing.
That's that big fat grant.
Yeah, I should have just stuck with big fat grant. Yeah, nice.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, we have that council received the Committee of the Whole Report 2022 to 2026 Financial Plan.
Move receipt.
Second.
All in favor? Carried.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. This report comes to you at the first council meeting after your committee of the whole budget deliberation meetings. So really, it's just a summary of your decisions at that meeting. And so what we've done is we've attached to this report a list of those decisions of what you've added to the budget. And for that listing, I've added a column, and it's called Council Committee of the Whole Status, and I've kind of outlined my understanding of those discussions and decisions. And so what council could do at this meeting is have a review of those items, and if you would like to change a status, change your decision that you've made at that meeting, or if something's not quite the way it was at that meeting, you can let me know then too, or you can remove something from this list at this meeting, but if you do change anything or remove something from this list, I would just ask if you could do a council resolution just to make it clear, and then I can use that to develop the rest.
Okay, we'll start with Councillor Brown.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think this reflects our conversations well, and as I understand, we have an opportunity to adjust things after we do the public consultation, the village hall, around this. So I think this is sort of ready to go to the public for comment.
Councillor Kettler.
Yep, I do. I think you did a good job of capturing what we talked about during Committee of the Whole, and you did a really good job leading us through that again this year. So thank you for that.
Thanks.
Yeah, there were some things that weren't added, which we talked about, the deputy fire chief increase and council remuneration, and there was something else. But we can talk about that again once we've had public input and then look at everything again. So thanks. Yeah.
Councillor Sproul.
Yes, I can see how from where we originally started, how you've honed it down so that it's really clear what we're using the restart funding is fantastic, what it's doing for us, and I don't see anything that is missed. We've talked about all these things, and yeah, it's a perfect one page. Is this what the public is going to get? Because this is very clear.
This would be, yeah, I could include that in the public package of what was added. And it, just to be clear, Councillor Spool, it is 2 pages, so there's one on...
Yes.
yes, okay,
Sorry,
sorry.
I meant
Yeah, that's good.
one sheet.
Yeah, one sheet.
Okay. Councillor Sullivan.
Yeah, I'll just echo the rest of the council in saying thanks again for a really good session. This year was the best in 7 years, I think. Not for the amount of money that we have, but for the processes getting better. Yeah, just a little bit of a surprise with the 2% increase, which we've kind of talked about with the staff, but that was, yeah, supported moving forward.
Okay. Yes, Michelle, thank you very much for all your hard work. I know that it's a tremendous amount of work, and you start early in the year. And yes, after 2 days of talking budget and making some very tough decisions, it's good to have it done, and I look forward to taking it to the public. So would somebody like to move?
Your Worship, just further to the CFO's request, if possible, if we the council resolution would be based on the tables, the 2 pages of tables. If it was clear, you know, which those tables were, that would be helpful for us to understand what we're bringing forward as part of that. And only the items, if there's any changes to any of those items within it, sounds like there isn't, then we would those are the items that we'll bring forward for council's considerations or for the public meeting. Is that?
Yes.
So I'll move that council direct staff to prepare the public meeting package and that the financial plan bylaw for November 15th, 2021 Village Hall budget open house.
Second.
All in favor? Carried.
Hey, birthday.
Thank you.
Thank you. That council receive the COVID-19 restart funding report.
Move receipt.
Second.
All in favor? Carried.
Hello, Your Worship, Council. Nice to see you again. Next iteration of our COVID restart funding report in front of you. I think we can keep it pretty simple. We've been through this before. I'd highlight that the total allocation commitment within this report is $178,000. And if you were to allocate, as the recommendations are listed in front of you, will result in a balance of about $274,000 remaining in our restart funding. As you can see through our recommendations, there's a number of projects that we put forward directly, some of that you recognize out of your budgeting process for allocation to use restart funds. And the bottom recommendation is around what we're recommending as staff as a restart grant program. We're asking that you allocate, or recommend that you allocate $40,000 directly right now so that we can secure that funding. And we would come back to council with a more fulsome framework around what that grant program looks like, as well as being able to, again, announce that to our community and those groups that would be eligible so that we could have it kind of unrolled equally alongside of our community grant and aid program. You'll notice that we've chosen and recommended using the same application dates, but simply keeping this one, recognizing it's at a bit different need. And this is simply to help organizations in our community that provide important community services overcome the challenges created by COVID. And it gives us a bit more framework. As you can see, appended to it is a request submitted by the Cumberland Community School Society. We're not asking for that allocation at this time. I also just wanted to let you know, or show you the types of standards, the information that are typically provided in these applications. And I think the School Society did a really good job making sure we have financial reports, making sure that we have a work plan or review on how those funding is going to be used, because that becomes the scope of the agreements for which they can receive the funding. So, that would be sort of in line with what we would expect for an application from any community organization. So, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Your Worship, can I just add one? Mike's close. Is just one other item there. Just these are obviously put forward for council's consideration. If at this point in time, council feels any of the items here they'd like to have a consideration at a future date, similar to what has been mentioned, they could be, put off to a certain date. The only one that is currently purchases would be the generator for the fire hall. The rest of those are all, if you'd like to make a decision today, you can, or if there's some that you'd like to decide on, you certainly can. So they're put forward for council's consideration, and if today's the day you'd like to direct staff to move forward with those, certainly we're ready to do that. If some of them are not, we would come back when the time's right.
Okay. Ready for questions? Councillor Kettler, we'll start with you tonight.
Yeah, no, I feel that we did have a pretty fulsome discussion about the restart funding, and I'm comfortable with all of the initiatives that are listed here today. And there is still some restart funding remaining. That's great. And I like that we're starting a grant program for that, and sort of setting a cap for our own restart grant program. I think that'll help us when decision time comes around that. So thanks for that.
Okay. Councillor Sullivan?
Yeah, I support all these moving forward. What's better than one grant program than two?
It can be a challenge.
Yeah.
Councillor Sproul?
Yes, it's actually more of a question. The office phase 3 renovations. Where a small meeting room at the front of the village hall. Is this the village hall or the big gymnasium?
So, sorry, it would be in the administrative office here in Village Hall.
Oh,
So,
okay,
yeah.
so next door.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that one particular would be, there's a room, part of the earlier phase, we've actually cut out a door that's actually well, it's not there right now, but there is an ability to put a door, so when planning question came, planning could meet in a small office just off the front lobby there, the new waiting room area there, so it'd be able to go in there and there'd be a room to be able to meet privately and go through.
Andrew's office gonna get cut in half or something?
Exactly, that one in half there, so, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Sorry, accountant.
Councillor Brown?
Yeah, thanks. So I like the list. I know we talked about it. The original ask for the fire hall emergency generator pad was $40,000. And, you know, with all due respect to the fire department and its amazing members and the hard work they do, we have, you know, funded an awful lot of fire things recently. And I wonder if there is an opportunity to generate that, the pad for the generator and the other pad for the other practice area. Maybe I have some concerns first about paving a bunch of the area back there. Right now it's permeable. That would make it not permeable. There is a wetland associated with that area. There is another development going in there. There's a whole bunch of stuff happening over there that concerns me around permeability and water function. So that's part of my concern. The second is that's a hefty chunk of cash. And I know that recently the rules changed around using DCC funding for fire halls, and could it be included there, or would there be a grant program that this might go to and we could reserve those COVID funds, having been generous to our fire department in the last few years somewhere else?
Clayton?
So, yeah, thank you for that. So this has been reduced since the discussion. This is just the generator pad that is, and the remaining install. So you were right, before there was I think it was the AutoX pad. So this is the reduction. We have, because one of the things we've noticed, we want, similar to the office renovations, we wanted to, you know, be as efficient with council's time. This has enough contingency that we're not going to have to come back, and you know, that was some of the concerns. If we became too low, this would allow some contingency there. One of the reasons why we do believe this is a priority, or staff believe, is that right now is our emergency operations center, and this generator, we currently, you know, if the power did go out right now, our fire hall does not have a backup generator to it, or our emergency operations. So very critical piece of you know, operational and emergency infrastructure. So but saying all that, we certainly can investigate. We may request, or I would request, is confirming this amount. If we find another source, we can certainly come back in the sense of, you know, if it's DCCs. I don't know the answer to that, but something we could look at relating to that particular piece of equipment being installed. But the other thing I think I mentioned during the budget period, it certainly was more expensive, the equipment, than we had expected. The actual generator itself, there's no question that we're at a height of a lot of the equipment, and that impacted that particular project budget. So.
Yeah, so unfortunate that cost wasn't included in the budget for the building, because clearly we need a generator for the building to operate when there's an emergency, because it's an emergency operations center. So yeah, if it's just the generator and the pad for the generator, then that's great. Let's do that. The other thing I wanted to talk about was the amount that we were putting into the grant program. Having seen the letter from the Cumberland Community Schools Society and understanding the immense amount of work that they do for this community, and also recognizing that our OCP does include food security, and this is basically the thing we do for food security in the village, is that food share. And they are needing funding, I think, to bridge, hopefully gaming comes online this year to fund that program, but should it not, they will need bridge funding for that. They've asked for 5 years worth. So that would put us over even if we did the minimum amount that they've asked for the 5 years, that puts us over the whole budget and doesn't leave room for any other COVID grants, which I think the CBA may be in also applying for. And so I just want to make sure we're putting enough money there. We still have, whatever it was, $274,000. So I would encourage us to up that grant amount.
Like this is sort of earmarked for the substance abuse strategy maybe as well.
Yeah, yeah. So we have a few things that we know that are going to come.
Yes,
Acknowledging council has, with the restart funding, we can allocate what council wishes, obviously. The numbers here are sort of based off of last year, what we provided for restart funding, and we only had 3 applicants. So far this year, the community school is the only group that's come forward and submitted actual detailed ask. And so at this time, this was the number we thought was sufficient for this time, and certainly we can revisit that at another time, or even now if we had a sense of what was going to be asked of us. So for right now, everything's, I guess you could say everything's flexible in a sense, but as of right now, we've only got the one ask, and acknowledging between now and March, I think, is when we've recommended that this application period run to, which is the same as our community grant and aid. If we see an uptick in subscription, then certainly we bring that back.
I think we can wait and see, and the time comes, we could add more money to it at any time.
So when the grants come in at that where we're allocating the funding, we could add the money then? Okay.
I think we'll see an uptick once we've made a formal announcement and made it aware. And this is a big part of it, is making sure that each group is on equal footing and knowing when this program is available. And so it may be a need to come back and update council on sort of what that expectation is.
And I don't see us doing it now and then having to do it again if that's a possibility. We might as well do it at one time to cover any, if that's the decision of council. Do it once. Okay? So thank you very much. I'm really glad that we still got money left because we're not out of this yet. So, okay, so, yes, please.
Are we okay with the 40 for now? Is that
Yes.
what happened? Okay. I'll move the council allocate restart fundings toward the following initiatives. $60,000 towards the office phase 3 renovation, $34,000 towards the construction of the fire hall emergency generator pad, $25,000 towards increased bylaw services for 2022, $7,000 towards council meeting software, $6,500 towards recreation facilities water filling stations, $3,000 towards the 2022 summer series in the park, $2,500 to the Inclusion and Accessibility Committee to undertake a public event to promote social equity and inclusion in the village. Further move that the council establish a one-time 2022 restart grant program and direct staff to present a program framework for council's consideration, and that council allocates $40,000 in restart funding for use within the 2022 restart grant program.
Second, all in favor? Carried. Next, that council receive the BC Hydro Street Light Retrofit Project Update Report for information.
Second.
All in favor? Carried.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is just a quick report to update Council on the BC Hydro Streetlight Retrofit Program. Per the Council recommendation from September 28th, 2020, staff have communicated with BC Hydro on the use of the 3,000 Kelvin lights. We recently submitted a master spreadsheet list also to BC Hydro outlining the wattage, and what we've communicated to BC Hydro is residential streets should receive a 39 watt 3000 Kelvin bulb, and then collectors and arterials, as they are now, receive a 75 watt bulb. Currently, I think if you check the SLIM program, the collector and residential roads are a 150 watt high pressure sodium, and local residential neighborhood streets are a 100 watt high pressure sodium. So, and of course, council, I think, expressed some concern about colors. Unfortunately, there aren't a lot of the color selection is really based on the level of Kelvin, with the 3000 Kelvin being the warmest light closest to the current high pressure sodium. So it's an amber style color light. And then my understanding is BC Hydro has Cumberland on their list for the spring of 2022 to come back. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, Councillor Sullivan?
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Just a question about the directional coverage. I have one of these new lights on my street, and just on the end of Maryport here, and so when I turn onto my street, I kind of come up a hump, and the light is sort of, it's almost just staring right at you. It's kind of like a little lower because you're kind of coming up, and it just stares right at you. So I don't know, I know we talked about some directional stuff, but that's not happening on that one at least, so I'm just sort of curious about
So
that.
your light in particular, I was able to actually look it up on the SLIM program. It's a 75 watt, so it should be reduced to a 39 watt.
There we go.
Which will reduce some of the brightness, but
It lights up almost the entire street, but it is definitely distracting. Driving out, it just kind of points right at you. So awesome, thanks.
Okay, Councillor Brown, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I'm curious. I know not all of the street lights are BC Hydro. Is it an easy explanation which are, which aren't? Or
it sure is. Any wooden pole, so the older parts of Cumberland have BC Hydro infrastructure above ground, and those are the, along with the David arm and the Cobra style light head, those are owned by Hydro and leased to the village. The newer subdivisions have street lights that the village actually owns, yeah.
and my follow-up is so in the picture you included in the reports, and thank you for this, the 2200 kelvins, we're not eligible for those?
No, those are the ones we have.
They're a high pressure sodium.
Oh.
Yeah, they're not an LED.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
It's a
Anyone?
significant wattage decrease. That's good.
Yeah.
Any other questions to council? Will you be staying around for question period? Because we do have a question concerning the streetlights.
Sure. I wasn't planning on it, but
Well, yeah. I thought you might go through it in your
won't be long.
report.
Could we ask them that now?
Yeah, how about if you answer the question now, and then we don't have to keep you?
all right.
Okay, and I'll read the question. I am concerned about the impact of these bright LED street lamps and the statement from BC Hydro that light shields will not be needed. In my experience, LED street lamps are always considerably brighter and bluer than sodium lamps. Are there any street lights in the village that have already been swapped for the new 3000 LED lamps and lamps to get better idea of what is coming?
So, answering the question about any being swapped, I think Hydro swapped a couple. So, on Maryport, and I think there's one in Egremont that I could find in the SLIM program. So they are a 3000 Kelvin 75 watt bulb, but they were probably swapped out as part of a transformer failure. So the ballast or whatever failed, and that's what Hydro has been doing, is replacing those with the new LED lights, but not part of the retrofit program yet. They haven't commenced that in the Cumberland. You know, as far as shields, I mean, Hydro's feedback to municipalities is, you know, they'll deal with it case by case kind of thing. For the most part, they don't think there'll be an issue, but they may be on a street where there's a bit of a hillside or something, right? Or you know, some street light lamp standards aren't perfectly straight, or, you know, they might be angled, or the head might be off, so there may need to be some adjustments, and perhaps shields considered, and we can definitely work with BC Hydro on trying to address some of those issues as they come up.
Okay, so when they are actually put in, will the residents that have issues, will they report, complain to the village, or will they complain to BC Hydro?
You know, I assume they're probably going to put complaints in the village, and I think what we'll do is we'll be a conduit and relay that to BC Hydro.
Okay.
Yeah, to address, so.
Thank you. You had another question, Councillor?
I was just going to say for that person that I live on the 2500 block of Maryport, so they can come and check it out. Although, is that going to get switched now? Because that's
It
the
should
high
be a
one.
lower wattage. Yeah, it'll
So
be
if you want to see the
switched
really
from
bright one on a residential street, 2500 block.
That'll be the ones that are like on
On the
Cumberland
main street,
Road
yeah,
or, yeah.
It seems like that, yeah. Great.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Rob.
You're welcome.
Next, that council receive the 2022 council meeting schedule report.
Move receipt.
Second.
All in favor? Carried.
Thank you, Council. So it's that time of year where we do some long-term planning for next year's council meetings, and the proposed schedule is presented attached to this report. I can go through a couple highlights. We've scheduled 2 Village Hall meetings for the year in March and June, and due to the election in October, we haven't scheduled any further in the year. There's a note on a couple of regular council meetings that aren't on the typical second and fourth Monday, and that's to accommodate the UBCM conference and some statutory holidays. One feature is we're proposing to have 1 meeting in July instead of 2 to give more flexibility for council member holidays and give you guys a break. Just of note for that proposal, if there is a time-sensitive matter, we may have to schedule a special council meeting. So it's good to keep that, be aware of that if you do schedule holidays during that time to be out of town. And one thing I'd like to note is Committee of the Whole meetings. This year we tried to have Committee of the Whole meetings on a regular council meeting night, and it wasn't as effective as we'd hoped it would be because it was every 3 months, and it wasn't frequent enough to bring those sort of policy discussion reports to council, and things were too time sensitive and couldn't wait often. So in this schedule, we're proposing those meetings be once a month during the day at 2 o'clock. Happy to have feedback on that time. I know daytime meetings can be a bit challenging for council members, but by having them separate from a regular council meeting, we're hoping it will really change the feel of the meeting to have more informal discussion-based meetings. And despite that they're quite frequent, if there's nothing, no topics for discussion, we can cancel those meetings. But it's just so you have them in your schedule and you're prepared to attend.
So we take away 1 and add 10? What's happening?
Yeah.
Just trying to work out the math here, yeah. 10 was a guess, but it seemed like on the right side there's a lot of those COTWs.
It's likely that we won't have them every month, but
Yeah,
it's
but
just
it's
have
like-
them there in case we do need them. And just another note that we typically include the financial plan workshops, and we haven't done so this year. We'll bring that back to you later once we have a better idea of it's a really busy time of month with you have the election in October, inaugural meetings, there's council orientation.
Yeah, my birthday's still available, so you
in
can
there,
add that
so-
on.
What's that?
My birthday next year is still available here, so we can
Is
add
that open?
Thank you, make sure.
So we plan to bring something in probably April or May this year with a schedule for that financial plan and some information on set the dates for orientation as well. So
Okay, Councillor Brown?
So then the Committee of the Whole would be 2 till 4:30 and then 5, or we
hoping
go
it wouldn't
straight
be that
through, or-
long, so you can have a decent
Okay.
dinner break. I would say 4 at the latest.
Okay.
Okay. So someone like to
Move the
make,
council approve the 2022 council meeting schedule, direct staff to give public notice to the availability of the annual schedule.
Second.
all in favor? Carried. Next, recommend that council receive the council member appointment report. Second? All in favor? Carried.
Okay, thank you. And appointments for this coming year, the only one that are necessary is the acting mayors, and the regional library board also requires annual appointments. The other appointments will extend, the existing ones will extend into 2022 unless council wishes to make some changes. So we're recommending basically the same schedule for acting mayors as you had in 2021, and the current appointees to the library board are willing to be reappointed. And also a note on we have a recommendation to bring forward a policy on council appointments to external agencies. You have a few of these already that are liaisons, and staff has recommended that when a council member is appointed to an external agency that you be a liaison rather than a voting member of that board, and that avoids conflict of interest. But there's been quite a few other requests coming in, and we felt it might be helpful for council members to have a bit of guidance when they're on those boards. Also, we'd like to look at ensuring that council members are extended beyond, it's a demanding job, and if you have a lot of these requests, it might spread you too thin. So we'd like to look at how those appointments can be assured to be beneficial to council and the community, and how you could, some criteria perhaps to use when considering those appointments, and also some alternatives perhaps to have council member liaisons to those external committees. So we're asking for direction to do so.
Yes, Clayton?
Just to add to the policy, I think one of the other pieces is helpful for the many of the requests that are received from the third, like the groups that are interested in having a liaison. This really outlines exactly what that might look like, so it's really clear, because they may have a different idea, but if council has a policy, it's really clear on what they can expect in those positions.
Mm-hmm. It's very important to make that very clear in the outset, so that there's nothing that will interfere with the decision of council members when sitting on the committee. And so I think that's really important to put that forward. Yes.
I was just going to say I'm museum liaison. Is it called? What is it called? The museum? Cumberland Museum, or does
It's
it
the
have-
Historical Society liaison to the board. That's correct.
Yes,
Yes.
I'm a non-voting
That's correct.
Yes.
liaison.
Because it can put you in a very difficult position when you come here and have to vote. Yes. Okay, so anyone have any questions? So someone would like to move?
I'll make the motion that council appoint acting mayors as follows: November 2021 to January 2022, Councillor Kettler; February to April 2022, Councillor Brown; May to July 2022, Councillor Sullivan; August to October 2022, Councillor Sproul; and that council appoint Councillor Vicky Brown as trustee and Councillor Gwyn Sproul as alternate trustee to the Vancouver Island Regional Library Board. That council directs staff to bring forward a policy on council appointments to external agencies.
Seconder?
Second.
All in favor? Carried.
Thank you.
Next, we're going into council reports. Thank you very much, Rachel. I'm just going to highlight a few of the items that I attended. I attended the Urban Economy Forum in collaboration with the UN Habitat and the town of Collingwood, Canada. And this was done by Zoom. And it's the second year that they've held this summit. And I was asked to be on the guest panel, and I was given 8 minutes to speak about Cumberland and on inclusive housing. It was a very, very interesting conference. And last year they had over 80 speakers that brought nearly 300 cities from across 50 countries to the conference with populations under 300,000. The guest speakers and the panel members were amazing and learned a lot. And a couple of things that I did find out was they've changed the name from affordable to attainable. Because unfortunately, a lot of people that refer to affordable housing think it's the lower income people. And we're not anymore. We are what they call the group in between the wealthy and the poor. And it's really hard to find attainable housing for medium incomes. They also talked about California, and they no longer, parts of California, can no longer build single-family homes. And that is becoming very, very prominent in a lot of countries. And the other thing is, in BC, a city is no longer building homes that are relying on fossil fuels. So the gamut of the questions and the resolutions that came out of there, the resolutions actually go to the UN for discussions. And it was very interesting. And the second part of that was they had a round table, and it included mayors from British Columbia that talked about the fire in Linton this year and what that cost. Not cost, but what it cost the people. And what we as other mayors were doing to try and help them, but also protect our own communities from any possibility of wildfires. And I certainly recommend that summit to everybody and anybody that would like to attend. And they will continue to do it by Zoom. I did speak to Minister Josie Osborne and UBC President Lori Ann Rottenberg about, we were given 2 minutes and we could talk about 2 issues within the village. And I spoke about the funding that we have received for our child care center and the lagoon system. And the funding that we received became apparent from the other mayors that the funding that they have received is not going to get them the projects that they thought it would get them, that the cost has gone and hit the roof because of COVID and the materials and the labor. So they're finding their projects are costing a lot more money, so they're having to cut back. And also the what is happening to our staffs and the burnout with all the projects that are going on in the communities. I did attend the Community Forest Society AGM, and they had a very good turnout. It was held at the First Church on the First Street. And the other thing that I had was, we had 2 days of budget discussion. It was great to get to really talk about what the needs are for the village. Staff did an excellent job of reporting to council. And I attended the conference on modernizing our forest practices, and they had many guest speakers, and it was a very good good meeting. And it was, of course, by the Ministry of Forest, Lands, Natural Resources Operations. And what is happening is there's a lot of discussion on Crown lands, very little on private managed forest lands, but they have made a commitment that they will, in January, they'll have a focus group that will discuss forest management on private managed forest. So looking forward to that presentation. I told them that we definitely wanted to be part of that discussion, and he put our name down on the list. And the last comment I would like to make is about the All Hallows Eve Street Spectacular on Sunday for Halloween. That was an amazing event. Many, many people. I talked to people from all over the island that came. And I asked them why they came. And they said it was because they know when Cumberland puts on an event, it will be amazing. And it certainly was. There is one other thing is I'm having numerous meetings concerning the Ginger Goodwin Medical Clinic, and I'm getting to the point where I'm going to be bringing a report to council fairly shortly. I did talk to the pharmacist, and they are offering through their service. You can walk in and book an appointment with the doctor within 10 minutes. They are averaging 10 to 15 people a day when it is open. So please go on their website or phone them and check and see when you can get into them. And it's an amazing offer. The doctors are from Vancouver. And so there is
Virtual, it's online.
it's online, virtual, they see you. And it was really interesting because I watched a show recently where they were actually doing that with a nurse practitioner sitting in the room with the patient, and the doctor was a specialist in another province. And the nurse was actually doing all the things with the patient to tell him where the pain was and what was going on with this individual. So it's being done all over everywhere. So it's really interesting, but I'm looking forward to finalizing some of these things about the clinic. Okay? Next, any questions?
It would be nice to eliminate some of the 3-hour waits at the walk-in clinics.
I think that with COVID, it's really changing the way we receive and see our doctors. Yes, I know practitioners can do a lot more things now with patients than they have in the past. Councillor Kettler.
Thanks. Yeah, I'll just highlight one thing about the month, and that was the regional water forum that we held, and we talked about Comox Lake and Perseverance Creek, Oyster River, Langley Lake, and Solom River, and it was a really good discussion. We had guest speakers from the regional district of Nanaimo and from Cowichan as well, and they talked about what they're doing, and one of the things that Nanaimo is doing is starting a service specifically for watershed protection, and so that's something of interest to our region and that we're looking at. And talking to other directors at the board, they thought it'd be a good idea to have public meetings. So we're because this was just an elected officials forum, and so all that information was shared just with elected officials, but it would be nice to broaden that and share that with the public. And so we're talking about doing that at some point too. So keep your eyes open for that.
Any other questions about her report? No? Okay, Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you. Yeah, just a couple of the mayor asked me to attend the 110th National Day celebration for the Republic of China, Taiwan in Vancouver. Thank you. That was a nice event there. It's brief, but pretty neat. I had to speak, which they were running late, so I thought I was going to get cut because there was a lot of very famous people at the start, and it kind of just got weeded down to, I was almost second last, and almost sure I wasn't going to get called. I was right at the back, so they had to wait for me to walk up. Anyway, I talked about the Lantern Festival and about our communities coming together, and it was well received, and it was a really nice event. At the Comox Strathcona Waste Management Board, we had our budget day that same day, so I wasn't able to attend, but ironically, there was 2 newspaper articles about both of the boards, the hospital board and the Waste Management Board. And so as from my report last month, the EPR programs have improved since then. So it's, it's like last month is looking to improve. So now they've added new products to the Recycle BC regulation and EPR program. So I'll just read those off for the people at home. Hybrid, EV, and other types of batteries, mattresses and foundations, compressed canisters, single-use camping, fire extinguishers, etc. Medical sharps from home use, emerging electronics, expanding and clarifying better hazardous waste EPR responsibilities, and researching better policies and opportunities for how packaging and paper can be diverted from industrial, commercial, and institutional sectors. So that's really good. That's a good start, and hopefully they keep advocating, or we're going to keep advocating for more improvements. And the solid waste roundtable summary, which I touched on last month, they had an article actually just about the destruction of the Lake Trail School and we were talking about construction debris and stuff, and that was kind of a rough article to read, considering we're literally right in the middle of this at the board, and it's like, oh, and then there's this big public, hey, why did you, where's, like, there was a considerable amount of construction debris come from the Lake Trail School. I've actually happened by several times to see over the last year, and was curious about that, and so that article was disconcerting, just sort of the, mostly what's happening is people are just, like with COVID and stuff, the gaps that people are talking about, and there's, so the board's trying to fill those gaps, and then suddenly there's this article about this giant gap. So now I think SD 71 will be brought in, or at least now they are brought in to be more aware of their stuff like that moving forward. But yeah, and the last thing I'll touch on was the science pub. It was, you were there, the mayor was there, and it's just some more informative fun to support the forest, and it's always nice to get together with the community, but it's really nice also to learn things, and while you're enjoying a beverage with your community. So that was a really fun thing. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Brown?
Councillor Kettler talked about the watershed thing, which I was going to talk about. I really appreciated the CVRD doing that. It was a great idea, and I like the follow-up with the public as well. I think that's also a great idea. The more conversations we have about water and watersheds, the better. And the science pub was awesome. So good to have those things back in person, and thank you to Rec and the other volunteers that made that Halloween parade so great. And I'm glad to hear there were people from all over the island, because I looked up the road at one point and thought, gee, wow, there's a lot of people here.
There's a lot of people there.
There's a lot of people.
It was bigger than market, or the fall market days.
There's a lot of people there, yeah.
And they were all in costume.
And they were all, so you don't know.
It's great.
Who are you?
Strangers.
Yes.
So yeah, that was a great event. Nice to see everybody.
Okay. Councillor Sproul?
Yes, tonight it has to be a late report. I was very, very busy last week. I missed out that we had was our facility review within this time period?
Yes, I think so.
Oh, was it? Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the only thing in the stuff. There's been a few things, I've been doing quite a few things with the museum, or getting ready for the big day, which I'll report about next time. That was 2 days ago.
Okay. Move the reports, please.
I'll receive the reports.
Second.
All in favor? Carried. No bylaws, no new business. No notice, motions, and announcements. Question period. Please send your question by email into info@cumberland.ca using subject line question period. Please note, limit to questions only. Comments will not be read.
Should I re-answer that question?
The one about,
Yeah, just in
yes,
case that person.
yes.
Yeah, earlier in the meeting, I answered the question about the lights, and if the person who asked if they're looking for one of the lights that are in the village, there's one on the 2500 block of Maryport in the middle. If you're looking to see what one of those lights looks like,
But that's not what we're replacing the lights with.
that's the main.
That is a
that'll be the
very
main
much
arterial.
brighter light
Yeah,
than we will,
It's
than
a
what
bad
we will.
example of
Yeah.
what's coming in, but
Bad
that,
example.
That one will be for the main streets, and the one that's
Arterial, yeah.
Okay, and we did have one email question come in. On the drawing of the Eddy, it shows a penthouse, a floor above the 4th floor. So is the site plan that shows the 5-story building what is really being planned? And I think that came up during the discussion that we had, and an explanation. It is for the mechanical room and the slant of the roof, and we're still discussing it. We'll be coming back to council. Okay?
And that the penthouse was a misnomer because it's not a residential unit, it's the elevator and the stairs.
Yes.
It's a terrible name for the elevator and stair room.
Any other questions at this time? Okay. Oh, question? No, no.
Yes, we had a few by email today. So, let me open this one. This again is about the BC Hydro, or the street lights. Does Cumberland Dark Skies policy state that the existing lights in the residential areas of Cumberland are to be grandfathered in, and any replacements, when they burn out, are not to be brighter than the ones replaced? So I think this
No.
question came in
Negative,
before
for sure, that's a
before the report.
No, nothing will be grandfathered in.
That's not even our decision.
No, it's not ours.
And what is the justification for replacing existing lights with brighter ones?
That is completely BC Hydro making that.
It's also a wattage thing. It's way,
Yes.
way less wattage burning with the new lights. It's an energy savings thing.
Okay, and we had a question related to the budget and emergency services. In view of the nearly 600 deaths in BC due to the heat dome, most of who were over 60 years of age, and the thousands of others who suffered, are there going to be funds allocated in the budget for a heat wave response plan, which would include dedicated space for cooling centers and staffing?
We had a heat wave plan this year, and it was the first that we had ever done. And I think we've talked about implementing it again next year if the case needs to. Clayton, you were the one that arranged that with Recreation?
So there is discussion about legislation that would come from the province defining what sort of response would be in relation to heat waves, future heat waves. So that information, we were made aware that that is something that likely will be coming in the short period, which would allow us time to respond for the summer here right now. We don't know what that is right now. However, the belief is part of that will be similar to an EOC or emergency response. There would be funding potentially from the province for any activation similar to what happened this year when we've activated that would occur. On top of that, our regional emergency management, the village participates in regionally, we are looking at a actual heat related response plan. So that hasn't been finalized yet. That's in the works right now. So the CVRD supporting the other municipalities, including the village, there is a heat related response plan, and so that would outline what our response would be, but that hasn't been finalized yet. So that's in the works. So right now, no budget set aside for that. We don't know what those details are, and the belief is, or the hope is, that the province would be supporting at least some of those initiatives relating to the new legislation, but we don't know that this time, but that's what we're expecting, something along that line.
Thank you very much. Whoops.
Okay, we have one more question. This relates to the land use application for 2714 Dunsmuir, which is the heritage alteration permit, and I think this relates to the machine penthouse, the elevator shaft. On the drawings on the back of the Cumberland, why is there a window in the roof?
I'm not where, yeah, I don't have a picture of the window that we're talking to. Do you have?
Yeah, I don't know. We'd have to, we could certainly follow up with the inquiry.
Yes.
And get a response back.
You have the person that sent that email in, and we can respond? Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Okay. Okay, any other further questions? No? Okay, close the meeting to the public.
I'll move the council close the meeting of the public pursuant to Section 90 of the Community Charter to consider labor relations or other employee relations, the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements, if the council considers the disclosure could be reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality, negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of a municipal service that are at the preliminary stages, and that in the view of council could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality if they were held in public.
Seconded.
All in favor? Carried. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. That is.
Whatever you want. No, you can come whenever you like.
What, was there something on the agenda that?